question, isn't it? I believe you took something that belongs to me.
Have you seen the latest polls? It's beginning to look like you're going to be our next president. Just like in that other world.
I wouldn't bet against me.
No, it wouldn't be prudent. I want you to understand something, Luthor. Although my distaste for you as a human being is Brobdingnagian, what I'm about to do isn't personal.
What are you babbling about?
Everything that exists has a specific nature. Each entity exists as something in particular and has characteristics that are part of what it is. A is A. And no matter what reality he calls home, Luthor is Luthor. If I'm to save the world, your existence must come to an end before you take office.
You're going to kill me so that Superman can't.
I'm a well-known crackpot. The Justice League's reputation will survive my actions, and Superman's legacy will remain intact.
Interesting plan. Unfortunately for you, it's not really an option. President. Foolish, faceless man. My campaign is a farce. A small part of a much grander scheme. President. Do you know how much power I'd have to give up to be president? That's right, conspiracy buff. I spent $75 million on a fake presidential campaign. All just to tick Superman off.
Welcome back to 52 Pickup, a podcast about the greatest comic you've never heard of. I am professional comic book expert Alex Jaffe, and with me today, as ever, is the demigod of posting themselves, Gita Jackson.
That's a new and unique way to describe me. Thank you. I am a demigod of posting. I am also now, as you know, a sorceress in training. I picked up the Moon and Serpent bumper book of magic.
Oh, fantastic.
I've been on a spiritual journey. It's been incredible. I feel so creatively supercharged by this. If you have writer's block, I promise you, reading even one page of this comic will make your life so much better.
I can tell it's a beginner's guide because it spells magic without the K.
No, that's a Crowley thing, and we don't need to listen to him. He was a weird old fascist that got pushed down the stairs by his own magic society.
Yeah.
So, we don't need, the world has progressed beyond the need for Aleister Crowley. You should just listen to Alan Moore instead.
Yeah.
But Jaffe, this week we also have a guest with us. Can you introduce our guest, please?
Oh, I would love to introduce our guest. Joining us is one of the elder statesmen of the comic podcasting community, one half of Comic Book Couples Counseling. Brad Gullickson is with us today.
Hello. Happy to be here.
Happy to hear from you.
Brad, you're one of the giants of comic book podcasting, but you're here You are.
Okay.
You're here for one reason and one reason only, for us to be mad at you about interviewing Grant Morrison before us.
Fair.
Yeah.
Fair.
Listen.
Fair. Yeah.
I mean, you must have broken this down for a lot of people at this point, but what combination of herbs and mushrooms did you take to contact them on the astral plane?
I wish I had a really fabulous story. I can tell you that I made the initial connections through DC Comics, and then it took 2 years of pestering to finally get an A-OK.
That sounds like
and that was one of the best days of my life when that email came in, and it was one sentence from Grant saying, "Yeah, I'd love to do your podcast." And that came in out of the blue. The last time I had emailed Grant was 3 months before that. And there it was. And honestly, I wasn't even sure if it was legit. And I wasn't sure it was legit until I opened up my Zoom room and staring at me was Grant Morrison in these lovely red shaded sunglasses. And I said, okay, I guess this is happening.
Rocks. That's so cool. Fuck. Why are you the coolest person?
I mean, before you say that, those were the sunglasses my dad wore when he went to Grateful Dead shows, so I'm not that impressed.
That's just the glasses of someone taking a lot of mushrooms.
Exactly.
I mean, it was really a dream come true. Lisa and I adore Morrison's work. There are so many runs that they have done that I find to be critical to my own imagination. And I never imagined that Grant Morrison would agree to be on Comic Book Couples Counseling. It just wasn't in the cards until it was.
Yeah.
Gosh. Well, we got 3 out of the 4 authors.
Mhm.
We have some people who've worked on art come on the show. We've interviewed them. We have 3 out of the 4 authors of 52, and Morrison has been the
most
one
elusive.
that got away.
Yeah.
The most elusive. The one that got away, I say as if it's a romantic entanglement, but
Yeah.
no, it is. You just have the feeling like in order to truly get through to them, you also have to be taking equal amounts of ayahuasca, and I don't have that capacity inside of me.
There was a moment where I was seriously considering taking a flight to like Dublin, where they were doing like a book event, to see if I could.
You were
talk to them
considering
there.
that, and I was like, "We're not paying for that,
Yeah.
so that's out of your own pocket."
Yeah. And that was the end of that.
yeah. But I feel like they've got to have more interesting stuff to do than make weird dolly art on their weird Substack.
Yeah, did you ask them about that? Did you ask them about how like they're doing AI art all over their Substack?
I was only made aware of that after the fact. So no, we did not. I mean, it was a Superman Day celebration. We spoke exclusively about Superman and All-Star Superman a little bit. Like the way Comic Book Couples Counseling works is we tend not to do general conversations. We tend to drill down on a theme.
Mm-hmm.
And so all we spoke about was the last son of Krypton.
I do love that guy. He's my favorite guy.
And I think it's especially relevant to this particular issue of 52, which I believe has a certain connection to what Morrison would write a few years after this in All-Star Superman. I think you can see some of the groundwork for one of the arcs in All-Star being laid at the end of this particular Steel story, which, according to the commentary by Keith Giffen in the liner notes for this issue, Morrison was a big part of scripting. This issue, it's a big old fight scene. It's the end. It's functionally the end of one of the major storylines we've been following through most of this year, the Steel and Natasha versus Luthor story. What is your experience with 52? Is this your, I can't imagine, like, with Morrison and all the 3 other authors, for that matter, being so important to your comics journey. This was your first time experiencing it.
No, I read this as it was coming out on the stands. I've had a weekly box at Big Planet Comics in Vienna, Virginia for the last 25 years. So I try not to miss a Wednesday, and we're recording on Wednesday, and I haven't gone to the shop yet. And it's given me the vapors. So we got to hurry up and record this so I can get out of here and go pick up my books. But yeah, this was such an event. And I think, honestly, I was probably the first time I had experienced a weekly comic book series. And I found it at the time to be almost stressful to partake in because the books just would not stop coming.
Yeah. It's definitely a lot, but it was one of the things that got me into following comics on a weekly basis. I wouldn't be the guy checking out comics every single week, probably if not for 52 and then I guess Blackest Night reigniting my interest a few years after that.
Yeah, it was just a reason to go to the store, right?
Yeah.
There's a new one of those. So also it was because the covers are so good and they're designed often to look like other kinds of weekly or monthly publications, it was always made me feel good to go to my local comic shop and see a new one on the stands and feel like comics were a part of culture in a way that sometimes they feel a little bit separate and siloed away from at that period of time.
Yeah, I mean, there's no experience quite like serialized comic storytelling.
Yeah.
And, honestly, the only thing that's getting me through my life right now is knowing that I've got another Wednesday coming up.
Yeah.
Wednesday to Wednesday. Yeah, I feel that for sure.
That's, I mean, straight up, that is how Lisa and I are surviving right now. And so thank God for comics.
Yeah, thank God. I say that every day. I think weekly books specifically, like 52, are what most simulate the manga experience of having this series that is always a part of your life. And it's so unsustainable under the Western comics model that it has literally only ever worked once. But
and it's also barely sustainable in the Japanese comics model.
That's true.
As you see with people dying at their desk and having to go on hiatus for months at a time because they have health problems or carpal tunnel or injuries in their hands. You know, it is so unique, so close to what we used to experience with like water cooler television shows, but also its own specific distinct thing. The only thing that comes close to reading 52 weekly at this current point in time is watching people react to New Chainsaw Man on Tuesdays at this point.
I mean, we've hit on an interesting dichotomy here that like the thing that keeps us coming back to comics that make it so important to us is that they're always there for us. But it's the fact that they're always there for us that is literally killing the people who are making them.
Yeah. It is a problem of the entertainment industry at large, it seems, is that there are sustainable ways to do it, but that doesn't fit the profit motive for the companies that want to make money off of it.
It also doesn't fit Me Want Comic Now. Have you considered Me Want Comic Now, Gita?
You know, I think I should consider that more broadly.
New issue when? Let's talk talent, shall we? Before we talk about any issue, we'd like to talk about the people who were involved in making it. This week, in addition to the usual gang of writers who all worked on this one together, it was all hands on the ball for this action scene. And
you can tell with the art, too. This issue looks different from the rest of the issues, and it looks really good and polished. Like, every single panel, every single illustration looks extremely polished in a way some previous issues clearly don't.
I'll tell you, the art team on this one, Chris Batista, Ronnie Ramos, Dan Green, they were, the last time we saw them was on that one Lady Styx issue that actually felt like a Grant Morrison issue, the one that really, really worked and then never worked again, back in number 31. Felt like something out of Final Crisis. You remember the one where we saw that like London planet being devastated by Lady Styx's forces. The one time that concept worked. And they're here for this big crescendo finale to this arc, which many at the time considered kind of the underbaked runt of the litter.
Yeah. It's funny to think about fan reaction to this arc going back to it at its finale, because now I feel like this arc is so prescient about how media works and how we create and then destroy celebrity and the satisfaction we have in that. And also the role of capital in how you can create and destroy a human being and how they use that as an extractive force, especially in stardom. And then on top of that, it's like, it's literally Elon Musk. Like, he's just literally Elon Musk. He is extracting the youth from a bunch of young, beautiful, talented, well-meaning people so he personally can live forever. It's literally that. Now it feels like one of the strongest arcs of the book.
I have a theory about why people were disappointed with this issue in particular. You know how in Seinfeld, you have like these 4 different plots happening with Jerry, George, Elaine, and Kramer, and they all kind of converge at the end in this way. Like, oh, I didn't expect them to interact. It was all one story all along. I think when people started 52 and it was going through these like 7 different storylines, there was this expectation that they would interweave with each other in a way that by the very end, they would be like, oh, that's why we were telling the Luthor story, because it would feed into the Booster Gold story this way and the Elongated Man story that way. I think the disappointment of number 40 is with the end of this storyline. That's when it first becomes apparent that no, the creative team is not interested in making these like all meet at one point, that these were all mini stories being told anthology-like in one collection.
Do you remember how you reacted to it when it first hit stands, or
it's a hell of a thing to go back to 52, having not visited it in a while, and also just jumping in at issue 40. I didn't read any of the previous 39 issues or reread the previous 39 issues in preparation for this conversation. I did like a quick little like Google search of like, okay, what's going on here? And that was really it. Like, I remember when 52 was getting to this point and the end was in sight, that I was not, I think I was probably in that category of, it's just going to sort of like wrap up casually. I was anticipating, like you were saying, like, oh, it's all going to come together and boom, climax. And so that's my vague memory of how I reacted to 52 as a whole. As is, just jumping into issue 40 today in preparation for this conversation, I think it's a hell of a fun fight comic that has some bite to it. And Luthor in particular feels very near to me right now in 2025. Like I was just like, okay, its relatability probably speaks to the moment in which this book came out. It also speaks to the moment that we're in right now. That's a little depressing too.
Yeah.
Very much.
Buddy, it is depressing. It is, I'm just trying to think about where we were like in 2008 when this book, it wasn't even 2008, was it? It was 2007. So it's not even the financial collapse we're staring down the barrel of it. No, I don't think anyone except for a few people that are plugged into it really know that that's going to happen. Where it's the presidential election we're fully on in campaign mode.
Yeah.
Culturally.
I think at this point, Obama is still campaigning against Hillary.
Correct.
Yeah.
And, the political fire at the moment was, from where I was standing at the time and still stand, was just to get W out.
Yeah.
And we were still very much living in a post 9/11 world.
Yeah.
And that was our concern. The billionaire problem, not really front of center,
Yeah.
and we were building towards, gosh, had Luthor been president yet?
Yes, that was 2000 to 2004.
So funny.
They had Luthor president instead of Bush.
Yeah, exactly.
Really funny. Sorry, that is really funny. I do think the billionaire problem wasn't yet something I had been given voice to. I'm such a typical millennial. 2008 was my freshman year of college, and I canvassed for Obama. And, like, we all, like, had a big party on campus when he was elected. I remember people getting pots and pans and, like, there's a drum circle. I went to Oberlin, so, of course, it was like that. And it was something we were beginning to have a language for, right? Because Obama was beginning to say things like, healthcare is a human right. And that was the first time I'd really considered that not only can we get W out and, like, not hand control back to the Republican Party, we can also make a better world. Like, that is a utopian vision of the world was beginning to feel really possible. Oberlin sent me a pamphlet when I was applying for colleges that said, do you think one person can change the world? Right? So there is this, like, millennial wave of yes, we can, using our people power, oust oligarchs, a word I wouldn't have used at the time, but now I think everybody understands what that means. And you do see a little bit of this reflected here, just the utopian vision of we can take down a bad guy if we all care about it enough, even if he seems like he's much more powerful than the rest of us.
Yeah, and also like the conversation around, realpolitik and, by any means necessary, I think was really front of center as well. And what are we doing with the gifts that we have, the money that we have, was very much a concern on my mind in 2007.
Yeah.
In terms of how, like, billionaires were received at the time, though, I think at this point, the big giant at the top of the leaderboard, as it were, is Bill Gates. And the main context that you hear Bill Gates in at this time, thanks in large part to a robust PR team, is the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So there is this prevalent idea that there is such a thing as a good way to be a billionaire.
Right.
And I think there is this in looking back on this arc, you can see the positioning of Steel as a counterpoint to Lex. There is a philanthropic, really, really rich guy versus someone who is not as altruistic, who is in fact downright evil, who's using his money in the wrong way, in a giving people a cheat code to superpowers instead of asking them to pull up their pants and do it themselves, right?
Not all capitalists, right?
That's the most exciting thing about 52, and especially this issue, is that this confrontation is happening between Steel and Luthor.
Yeah.
Not, Superman and Luthor. And I think, giving Steel this moment and like the whole story with Natasha Irons too, is just something that would be like a B plot, if Superman was still around.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think what was great about 52 is that we took the spotlight off of the Trinity and allowed a lot of the smaller characters to do their thing.
Exactly. To typify that is this incredible cover by J.G. Jones. I think some of his best work in the entire series.
This is a really good cover.
Toppling the L from LexCorp Tower. Oh my God. This is mythic right here.
Yeah, and it's so good in context with the story.
Yeah.
Like the way that L comes down to signify the end. Like I think it's on a page turn. It's a great page turn.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I really adore this cover. I often say that these covers could be full-size posters and I'd put them up on my walls. And this is another great example because it gives you a tease. We all know, obviously, the good guy's going to win, but it gives you a tease of the emotion you want to feel.
Yes.
You want to feel like you want to feel like a tyrant was taken down. Like that is it. Speaking of post 9/11, reminiscent of the propaganda of statues of Saddam Hussein being pulled down. When we invaded there. But here, instead of a statue being torn down, here is like a literal Iron Man standing, taking down a symbol of a different kind of great evil.
Yeah. Can you imagine what that would look like in 2025? Like a big X being like ripped off of a building.
Oh my God, right?
Thrown to the ground. Like, give me
this
that.
This is why I'm so excited for the new Superman, because I know James Gunn is not afraid of calling out specific people.
I will say that is something Tom Taylor specifically did in his John Kent Superman book, Superman Son of Kal-El, where there's a big scene where the younger Superman rips the L off of LexCorp Tower and hands it to Luthor and says, "Hey Luthor, you should take the L."
You should hold this.
Fandom is divided on whether that was awesome or the worst thing ever.
It sounds like something a teenager would do, so I feel like it's in character.
It feels right to me.
Listen, teenagers can be cringe. It's okay.
Yeah.
Sometimes teenagers are embarrassing.
Especially a teenager who spent 5 years of their life inside a volcano in an evil universe.
That guy's not socialized properly.
No!
Gosh. Okay, I want to start talking about this first page because I really love the panel layout here. It feels so Power Rangers, and I just love it.
Yes, this is full on the suit up sequence from any given Batman movie.
Yeah, you set it to music and it becomes a Sailor Moon transformation sequence. That's what it looks like.
Yeah,
it is.
It's that bit from the Venture Brothers where Henchman 21 is suiting up to Mars, Bringer of War. Da 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 da.
That's so funny.
You gotta sell the suit at the start of this issue so that once we get to it, shattering off of his body, that has its impact.
Yeah.
I think it's a very clever storytelling.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Why give a character armor if you're not going to dramatically blow it off them for battle damage?
Oh man. And then you turn the page and it's a really cool looking Slash. I'm not immune to this. I love watching cool characters do cool shit.
It rules.
It rules. Steel looks so fucking cool here. He looks incredibly beastly. It is everything you want in a story designed to revitalize and reintroduce a character to new audiences.
We get our title drop, Man Ain't Nothing But a Man. A reference to the original John Henry ballad. Of course,
that's
you
so cool.
You have to.
That's really cool.
Yeah. Oh man. And we get this just big ass fight scene because when we last left our heroes, Lex Luthor had revealed that the Everyman Project had worked on him and that he did have superpowers now. And now he was holding Natasha Irons hostage so he could finally publicly humiliate the only rival he has left, i.e. Steel.
Yeah, I like to think of it as this is like a storyboard that could work for the last half hour of a movie.
Yes.
Or it is like setting up the different phases of a boss fight when you're in a boss fight level. It's very meticulously designed. So, and it fits a lot of like action movie tropes where in the beginning here in these first 2 pages, which is 6-panel grid on both pages, it's, okay, we've set up that he's got a team with him, but also that Lex is in a different location, fully aware of what Steel is doing, and he's got a plan.
Yeah.
Very, very clean writing.
Yeah, Steel's team is the kind of time-washed titans who exist in this nether realm between Infinite Crisis and 1 year later. We got Raven and Beast Boy holding it down, but we've also got some oddballs like Offspring and Aqua Girl. It's a nice little eclectic mix to fight the Infinity Inc. team.
Offspring's deal?
He's Plastic Man's son.
Okay. Well, that makes sense. That's why he's so stretchy.
The difference between Offspring and Plastic Man is that Offspring can change color when he transforms and Plastic Man can't.
Okay.
And he's a really big fan of the band Offspring, I assume.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Yeah. Don't you love it when in Star Trek they refer to music from our era as classical music or call it the ancient West? That's what I'm thinking of every time I think about Offspring. I love the classical music group, the Offspring.
Yeah. Pretty fly for a white guy indeed. Offspring originates from Kingdom Come, and Mark Waid, as one of the writers of Kingdom Come, imported him from there into this.
Erased him from my memory.
Yeah. He's actually not from Kingdom Come. He's from The Kingdom, the much less good sequel to Kingdom Come.
Yeah, so the one that people didn't read. Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Kingdom Come, fine. The Kingdom I look at as just kind of a series of cool illustrations and don't pay attention to the contents.
I will say in defense of The Kingdom, it is a story before Grant Morrison where Damian Wayne goes to therapy. And that's pretty good. Yeah.
Therapy. What anyone from the United Kingdom just doesn't consider for their characters.
This is a great fight scene. The Titans are fighting the Infinity Inc. as Steel goes to find Natasha, but Natasha is our shape-shifting Hannibal Lecter everyman. To catch you up, Brad, the shape-shifting villain here, in case you've forgotten, his name is Hannibal Bates, and he eats people in order to transform into them.
Yeah. You know, you got to.
Yeah. If your name is Hannibal Bates, you do literally have to.
Yeah, you have no choice. At some point off screen, he must have eaten a giant crab, because this is the point where he turns into a giant crab.
I do love the zaniness of this.
Yeah.
I'm not mad at it. Although, where did he find a crab of that size? Or can he shapeshift into things and change their size proportionally?
That's a good question, and one we may never learn the answer to, because Steel gets in a big fight with him, whoops his ass, but in the process, his armor dramatically shatters everywhere. So now all he's got is this super hammer and perfect abs.
So good. Good. We skipped over the moment in which Steel flew through all the floors.
Yes.
He's just smashing through floors to get to Natasha.
Like, I was expecting like a raid-like situation. We got to go up level by level by level, but Steel doesn't have time for that.
No, he's just jumping through like it's paper.
And I like that he checked first. He was like, I trust you. There's nobody up there, right? Yeah, there's nobody up there. Okay, boo.
Yeah, no, I do love that. It's like it's just a one-page splash of him just obliterating like 30 floors of this building. It's so great.
So good.
This is what I mean by like, it feels like a boss fight level, because it's like there's the point where you have the allies that help you, and then there's a checkpoint and they're like, okay, we'll hold them back here, you go on ahead. And that's the point when I'm playing a video game where I'm always like, but I wanted your help, it was easier when you guys were here, now I have to do it by myself.
Yeah.
And because Steel went through all of those floors, he creates a chasm for Hannibal Bates to fall through to his death.
Yes,
he's fine. He'll be back.
He doesn't look fine.
He'll be fine. He comes back to impersonate Green Arrow at the wedding of Green Arrow and Black Canary, so he'll be okay.
Oh,
whoa!
That's where I've seen him.
Yeah, that's where you know every man.
That's so funny. That's like the only that the way that works is because you had writers on this book who give a fuck about Green Arrow.
Yeah.
That's the only way. And they're like, okay, I know they're not going to actually let us marry them, so who can disrupt it? Oh, what was the name of the weird freak that we had that ate people?
Hannibal Bates. Yeah, and he tries to eat Black Canary on their wedding night.
Oh my fucking God, that rules.
I do, like, we just read that issue last year. We just covered that maybe 2 years ago. So good.
Yeah.
That's so funny. Oh my God, I should read that arc.
Bet you didn't know that the Green Arrow Black Canary wedding special was a sequel to 52.
I did not.
Surprise.
I love it.
God.
I just, again, I'm looking at this guy. He's created some pretty good dents. He's like bleeding out the mouth.
Well, you have to consider at some point he must have eaten a corpse in that he is now impersonating a corpse.
Yes, that's true. That's true. He went into his corpse shapeshift, stopped his pulse. I love the emphasis on the hammer from here on out, as like it goes from 3 panels dealing with the fall of every man, and then the final panel on that page is just the hammer and this big crunch sound effect. So you still understand that even though without armor, he is like shredded and he's got a big fucking hammer. So you can actually just kill a man with those 2 tools alone.
This is the part of the issue where I think Grant Morrison takes the wheel and goes full on All-Star Superman, where we get big, gloating, shit-eating Lex Luthor, just absolutely delighting in the fact that this just pillar of heroism ain't shit compared to him.
I love the scene on that opposite page, the one panel where you see him doing X-ray on his hand, just for fun, just to see what it does.
Amazing.
If only he had these powers for a little bit longer, he would have seen the answer to everything. He would have realized the folly of his existence.
No, you're hitting on it exactly, Brad. My theory is that it is this very scene about Luthor getting superpowers, which leads Morrison to later explore what happens when Luthor gets superpowers in All-Star Superman.
Yeah,
it's a second draft of this scene.
Yeah, I think, Morrison wanted to do that All-Star Superman sequence earlier, I think in JLA or post-JLA, and he wasn't allowed to. And then that has just sort of been stuck in their mind.
Oh, yeah.
And slowly finding ways to work it out. And this is like a sketch of that.
Are you telling me that Grant Morrison has been revisiting one concept throughout their entire oeuvre? That doesn't sound like them at all. Let me tell you about the time I took psychedelics in the Mojave Desert and aliens told me about the multiverse 50 times.
Gosh. Don't we love it, folks? I love it. But the whole next of the fight, we get a lot of Steel just eating shit. Just like eating shit. Big shit-eating grin on. I could not help but think about Elon Musk this entire time around, because this is what Musk was doing when he just took over the government. Yeah, exactly like that. Yeah, that's what he fucking looked like.
We have been talking about how 52 was inspired by Justice League Unlimited, which had just happened before this. And my all-time favorite episode of Justice League Unlimited, Question Authority, has a whole episode where Lex Luthor gets superpowers, smacks around the Question, and gloats at him the whole time about how badly wrong he's gotten this entire thing. And Luthor gives a similar speech to Steel right here, where he just kind of cracks his knuckles and goes, "Explain to me again how being human is so much better than this. Now we can rebuild our own JLA. We'll enforce my laws, my philosophies. If no one's smart enough or coordinated enough to stop us, we'll make the world a better place in days. We'll even rename Earth in my honor. Why not? Planet Lexor."
He gets to Planet Lexor so quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He goes from 0 to Lexor immediately.
When he starts out, you're like, that's pretty small for a guy with fucking laser beams in his eyes. And I was like, oh, okay, you had that ability. I was not familiar with your game.
Yeah. And this is where Steel is like, Lexor, okay, come on.
It's wild.
John says, Natasha, we're going home. And Luthor smashes his desk and goes, in an ambulance.
He's so mad. I love this bit because there's no reason for you to do that.
That's your desk, my dude.
Well, the whole office is kind of done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is all insured.
Yeah. Oh, that's true.
Yeah. I like the way that this fight resolves because it does actually put a nice bow on what was happening between John and Natasha, where he has the plan, he has the righteous eagerness, he is morally correct, and Natasha just has to be confident enough to stand up and work with her own abilities instead of begging for power from someone else.
Yeah.
So we see Natasha has been sitting there. She's badly bruised. She's tied up. She desperately does not want her uncle to be harmed. She says, in fact, to Luthor, I'll do whatever you say, just don't hurt him. Luthor has no intention of not hurting him.
Of course.
He's going to hurt him a lot. And we see that he throws his hammer towards Natasha. And then specifically, conspicuously, his fist is illustrated punching Luthor in the face. And then we turn the page and Natasha's freed because the hammer hit her chair and released her. And she notices that it has some kind of electromagnetic charge. But Luthor has figured out that his hand, also the hand that he was punched with, John's hand, not his own hand, also is robotic, similarly.
Right.
And there's some technobabble that goes on here, but then Natasha, because she's a genius, quickly realizes her uncle's plan and figures out how to save everyone, not using any ability she gained from being the fake superhero injection, but just from her own mind.
Yeah, using the engineering she used at the very beginning of this to build her own suit.
Yes, exactly. This is why this story specifically now feels so strong to me, because it's like there were themes here, and all of those themes actually get resolved at the end of the arc. And we can't actually say the same for all of the stories in 52.
No. I think hanging together, it's really strong. And I love the note it ends on, where at the very beginning they're talking about how that tragedy where all of Luthor's heroes fell from the sky on New Year's Day corrupted the idea of looking up in the sky for hope. And at the very end, we see the Titans shout, "Look up in the sky!" And there's John and Natasha standing triumphantly over Luthor at the top of Lex Tower. Just an incredible splash page.
I love it. I do love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that splash page is fantastic. We've got the light coming down from the upper left-hand corner, highlighting them, and also Luthor's bald, unconscious head on the bottom right-hand corner.
Oh, it's so good.
It's really good.
Yeah.
It's like resting like it would if he had been guillotined, like in the little basket.
Yes!
Yeah. Yeah, like another moment in the confrontation between Steel and Luthor that I really enjoy is Steel telling Luthor why he's not going to win. You know, he has no motivation. He has no connection to anybody. And being disconnected will be your downfall. And I think that also ties back into where Morrison would take Luthor in All-Star Superman.
Yeah.
And him finally connecting to life in All-Star Superman is what saves him from himself.
Yeah. I made a similar observation where you can see this is a first draft of these concepts, where instead of Luthor being told that by another character in All-Star Superman, Luthor is undone because he realizes it. And it's like so overwhelming to him to understand how much life is all connected because he doesn't feel anything for anybody. Yeah. Here it works because it's like Natasha had to understand that in this specific story, that she has a connection to her uncle that she really needs to cherish, and that he's not trying to like pull up your pants on her or, you know, trying to big time her. He is treating her like an adult, and that she needs to live up to that promise. And that's where she regains her power. She's empowered by the story. Yeah. But, you know, in terms of the story of Superman and Lex, like the way it's depicted in All-Star Superman, you can see the echo, you can see the sort of revision of the draft, where if you're telling like the essential story of Superman, that's how it has to go down. Yeah. Lex has to be undone by the feeling of compassion, which is one of the many powers that Superman has.
Yeah, and you could not have that happen in this story.
Yeah, it's not happening. It's absolutely not.
It would be so unsatisfying. It would be offensive, I would say.
Honestly, yes. Like, multiple people have died. Like, people Natasha knows. You gotta punch that sucker in the head. Like,
Yeah, it was not too many weeks earlier that Luthor let a child die so that he might have a shot at getting superpowers.
Absolutely. And also Superman, a lot of the crimes are just way zanier, so you don't have to worry too much.
That's pretty much this issue. There wasn't room for a backup because we needed every page we could get for this fight. Correct call.
But there are two
more
pages on Kondak.
Yeah.
Which, the post 9/11 of it all.
Yeah.
Truly. Yeah. Some bad shit's happening in the Middle East. It's crazy. It's crazy news. God. So there's Osiris is really upset because it seems like there's nonstop rain, but the gardens are dying. There's unrest. The cemeteries are overflowing. He thinks it's all his fault. And he's got Sobek in the raincoat is so cute.
Yeah.
I love it so much.
Why does he need a raincoat? He's an alligator.
The one thing every artist on 52 nails is somehow making this crocodile man adorable.
Like, Sobek is great. Sobek is straight out of 2000 AD. I'm all about him. Give him all the outfits, you know?
Yes, right. He doesn't need to wear pants, but he does because he wants to be like a man. I love that for him. God, he looks so meek. Although I do notice week to week that they draw his teeth very intensely.
That's true.
And his beady eyes seem beadier and beadier every week. I'm sure that there's nothing going on there, though.
Sobek has never done anything wrong and will never do anything wrong.
Nope, never will.
Yeah.
Never will.
So Osiris is concerned about the fact that literally war, famine, pestilence, and death are happening all over Kondak. That's a weird grouping of things to be happening. And he assumes that it's because he accidentally killed a man a while ago when he just charged himself like a bullet through Persuader's body, and that the gods are punishing him for that. And Sobek's like, well, maybe we could do something about it. And Osiris is like, yeah, let's go check out the Rock of Eternity. Let's get to investigate the source of these powers and see what's what.
It's a great last line. You know, like, I need to find a new family
in
the context of Shazam, Captain Marvel, Black Adam. Ooh, it's like that's a good button.
Oh, yeah. I do like it. And again, contrasting this with what just happened with a family coming together and there's a family falling apart, I think is a nice little tease to add to the end of the issue.
Yeah, absolutely. What an issue, guys. This was number 40. Did you have a favorite scene? I mean, it's two scenes, but what was your favorite part of this issue? What would you like to highlight here at the end?
I think for me, of the big fight scene, my favorite part of that fight scene, I just like the conclusion where Natasha gets to win. She needed a win, and I really like the character development that she goes through. In the beginning of the arc, she did come off as really entitled, but I do think at the end of the arc, they hit the right tone where she hasn't been humbled. She just heeds the call of justice, I would say.
Yeah, it's not about her learning humility. It's about John recognizing her her utility as a hero in her own right that she's had. It's like
trust.
Yeah,
it's about the trust between the two of them.
Yeah.
And she trusts herself, he trusts her, and she trusts him, which is not what they had at the beginning of the story.
Yeah, he saw himself as kind of a mentor. She saw herself as like having to rebel. And now they're partners. Yeah,
they're a team. That final splash with the two of them is a really that image feels earned, and that's why it feels satisfying.
That's my favorite part. This big splash at the end of John with his arm draped around Natasha's shoulders, hand missing at the end. It's great.
Yeah, I like it a lot.
Brad, what did you think coming back to this after 20 years?
I love I love those moments that you just mentioned. I think for me, the moment that brought me the most delight is Luthor going to the insanity of like, we're going to call it Planet Luthor or Planet Lexor. To John Henry immediately going like, dude, you're so out of touch. You have nothing. You have no connection. You have no real motivation. you're nothing, and that's why you're going to lose.
Right.
And
Yeah.
the confidence of John Henry saying that to Luthor in that moment when he is extremely vulnerable, I think is incredibly heroic and what makes Steel cool.
Yeah, that is what makes Steel cool. That is really right. There's like a sense of righteousness that's different from like Superman's compassion. John Henry knows he's on a fight for the human race, and he like embodies that. Whereas Superman is a savior figure, and he knows that, so he has to be super compassionate and super open.
Confronting injustice and not necessarily having the confidence of knowing you can't be hurt. Right?
Yeah. You're on a moral crusade. That is what gives you the power to continue to fight, essentially.
Yeah, you're super vulnerable. He just had his own hammer run through his rib cage.
Yeah. That was brutal.
Yeah. So,
and he still has the words to tell Luthor to stick it.
It's exactly how everybody would want to feel when they're confronting like a great, like in a human evil, right? The human evil of greed and money and like capitalism, essentially, right? You're not fighting an alien threat, but something that you have the capacity to succumb to as well. And you stand up even with a hole in your chest and you say, no, and I know why you're going to lose. It's because I am connected to the human race and you are not.
Right. I think it's time to go to the blackboard. This is the part of every episode where we reflect on this issue and think about something, either a question that it raises about the DC universe for us that we'd like to know more about, or something that it has a connection to that it reminds us of from some other part of DC lore. Gita, do you want to start us out?
Okay, mine's kind of wild, but we know in the real world how insane Silicon Valley got.
Mm-hmm.
I do believe that LexCorp, although it covers multiple different business sectors, is probably mostly a technological company, a Silicon Valley-esque company.
Yeah.
So in reaction to how extreme the projects of LexCorp are, what do you guys think like Facebook and what would become Twitter and Microsoft and IBM, and all those other tech sector companies, what are they like in this universe? Because they have to compete with this crazy man.
Mm-hmm.
I think they probably exist as they do here. Like, to me, like Luthor is like Amazon, you know, like,
Mhm.
Okay.
like he's Elon Musk and he's Jeff Bezos. You know?
Yeah.
He's sending pop stars to space
Yep.
because, you know.
Yeah. And so we can try to impregnate them to create the perfect progeny.
Oh, God.
I imagine that Luthor will still allow the little people of Facebook to exist under his thumb.
What would happen if he met Zuckerberg, who at this point is in his fuck you flip-flops, right?
I could tell you exactly what would happen if Luthor met Zuckerberg, and it's in a Mark Russell comic called Lex Luthor Porky Pig. And it's,
oh my God.
Yeah. And
Wait,
yes, in this crossover Looney Tune comic, Porky is a stand-in for like a social media company executive who Luthor takes under his wing and makes him like this fall guy for all the stuff that he's doing.
It's
so
wild.
Funny. That's so funny.
A lot of fun.
Oh my God. I have to read that because Zuckerberg didn't reach his fullest, most evil potential until about 5 years ago. And he was already pretty evil, but he became way more evil like really recently.
Yeah.
And that would absolutely happen to him. I'm just imagining a world in which the movie The Social Network has to account for Lex Luthor in some way.
Oh man. I wish The Social Network would be made now. What would that look like?
I wonder what would happen if someone cast Jesse Eisenberg from The Social Network as Lex Luthor.
I mean, it's not a bad casting.
Listen, he did get it. I watched that film and I was like, you are the person that understood the assignment, Jesse. You are the one.
Yeah. Zach, say what you will about Zack Snyder. He's always had great casting directors.
That's so true. Every time he works with someone for casting, they end up like they understand the vision so completely.
Yeah.
And it's just the movie doesn't live up to it ever.
Right.
I just learned that when Triple X came out, the Vin Diesel movie, I don't know if the last time you watched Triple X or if you've ever watched Triple X.
Honestly,
I love Triple X.
Pretty recently, I watched Triple X. That movie kind of slaps.
There's a scene where a senator has a car with a bumper sticker that says skateboarding is a crime.
So, that jacket, that like fluffy, furry thing that Diesel wears?
Yeah.
Zuckerberg owns that.
Oh my fucking God. What a loser. I'm sorry. A loser.
Oh my God. Wow. What a thing to know about Marky Zucks.
Oh my God. Just like douche chills. That's what I get when I hear about that. That's loser behavior. Like you can't. Okay, sorry. I'm not going to get in a rant about why that is uncool. I think everyone just knows.
I'm going to talk for my thing on the blackboard. I'm going to give us a short overview of a thing that existed in comics before this. That bit where Lex Luthor says, hey, maybe I'll call the planet Lexor. That's a reference to a long-running storyline from Silver and Bronze Age Superman comics. And
that's how you know Morrison wrote that.
Yeah. Lexor was the subject of this story where Luthor decides to take Superman to a distant planet that orbits a red sun so they can fight on even playing field and just settle this out like man to man. But they get there and Luthor looks around and sees how the native people of this planet just can't figure out basic farming. And he's like, look at these idiots. They don't even know how to take care of themselves. And like, as an act of like trying to show how much better he is than them, he saves everyone on the planet's lives by inventing modern technology. And he becomes an accidental hero to their people. And they renamed the planet Lexor in his honor. And it becomes this world for many years that he goes to like vacation to, where he gets the love and adoration that he wanted on Earth. And eventually, tragically, Lexor is destroyed because Luthor can't let go of his grudge on Superman, and it gets blown up as like the side effect of some plot he has against Superman.
This is literally the story of Elon Musk buying Twitter, though.
Exactly. Yes, Lexor is X. It's Xor.
It's X the everything app. Fuck.
Yeah, Lex the everything lap.
Fuck, I'm so mad. It's wild because it feels like he is taking notes from the comics.
Yeah.
Like, that's what's wild, is that they wrote a character that's so convincing that a human being is just becoming that archetype without having any relationship to the comic at all.
Brad, do you have anything you want to put on the blackboard?
I mean, I feel like we've covered it already. Like that connection to All-Star Superman is what really stands out. What I want to explore more of is Everyman and his whole process. I think you could make a great comic with that concept.
You know who would be a great villain for? Everyone is so goo gaga about the really good Martian Manhunter, Absolute Martian Manhunter book that looks beautiful. He'd be a great Martian Manhunter villain.
Oh, sure.
100%.
Bring him back to like detective roots, and there's a murder mystery where anyone you talk to could be a suspect because you don't know who is Everyman.
Yeah, but I'm the psychotic who's like, I want Everyman to be the protagonist.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I would also dig that book really bad. Like,
I mean, Brad, at this point, you're just describing John Layman's Chew.
Yeah. Give me the DC Superman or superhero version of Chew.
Yeah.
Oh, man. I would love that. Just evil Chew would be so funny. It would be evil a really funny book.
For those listening unfamiliar, Chew is about a comic about a detective who is able to read the minds of anyone he eats.
Yeah, it's gnarly. Yeah. He's a good guy, though.
He's a good guy, though. He uses it to solve crime.
It's so gross.
If they did a Suicide Squad with Everyman, that would also be a really fun, because he's off-putting. In a group setting, he's so fun to play with because he's just here. He's like, what's up? I'm a cannibal. I want to kill all of you and become you. You know, like that's it.
Yeah, like James Gunn would do wonders with
Everyman.
Oh my God.
Who would you cast as Everyman in the next James Gunn project?
Ooh,
a freaky guy. It has to be Barry Keoghan.
Oh, Barry Keoghan.
That's good.
I was thinking John Malkovich.
John Malkovich would also be really good.
There's a smaller character actor named Garrett Dillahunt who played Crow-Marty in the Sarah Connor Chronicles.
Oh, yes. I remember this guy.
Ooh, yeah.
I love that show.
He'd
That's
be
a good call.
everyman.
All right. Last segment, we're going to the mailbag to ask the questions. This week's question comes from Chris, who says, "Hi, Gita and Alex. Firstly, thanks so much for the show. Liking Grant Morrison's The Invisibles was basically my whole personality in high school. And if
Same
52
dude.
And 52 came out as I graduated university. But I had such a strong completionist urge, plus years of spending all my time doing schoolwork had ruined my ability to do anything fun, and ended up with a long list of things I felt I should read before I could pick it up. And in the end, didn't read anything at all. I'll take an aside to say, I think that is what dooms most comic book fans. I think the worst way to come into comic book fandom is to start hunting for a reading order. That is always going to drive you mad. You just got to dive in where you dive in and figure out the context as you go. Back to the letter. Some therapy and mental health diagnoses later, and this show was exactly what I needed to pick this up and just start reading comics from whatever point is interesting to me. Exactly, Chris. All right. Mm-hmm. I was always aware of message boards, and one thing I still regret is not getting around to jumping to big events with a group of chatty nerds who are all keeping up at the same time. It seems to me that a big part of the fun of things like this was fantasy booking what might happen next, like how wrestling is the most fun it can be between Survivor Series and WrestleMania via the Royal Rumble. My question is, what were your favorite theories for where things were going that didn't end up happening, either in 52 or another big event? And do you think the delays between when comics come out in stores and when they show up in the streaming apps means there's less chat online now? Thanks again for the show. I promise I'll never stop reading comics again.
Oh, well, that's sweet. You can always take a break from comics, but comics will always be here for you.
I disagree with that. The ending statement of every episode of the show is never stop reading comics.
That is an interesting question. Like a theory, like what I jumped to is the show Lost.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
And that's where I really got lost, pardon the pun.
Yeah.
Following fan theories and them never happening.
Mm-hmm.
I can appreciate Lost now as someone who wasn't watching it at the time that gets to receive it as a complete object, because I just get to have the fun of watching TV, and I don't have to have the stress of engaging in these fan communities and trying to figure out where things are going. I know none of it's going to be resolved, so I'm just having a good time now.
Yeah, I've really disengaged from the discourse regarding speculation.
Mm-hmm.
I had a lot of fun with it with Lost. I had a lot of fun with it in the early days of the MCU, like when Thanos stood up from his chair at the end of Avengers. And then anticipating oh my gosh, I can't wait for the Infinity Gauntlet storyline that happened just like it did in the comics.
I think one example I have that's super embarrassing, but it's the last time I ever put any stock in any fan theory ever. And I do have to mention it involves evil transphobe J.K. Rowling.
Okay.
Cowling Rowling. In the third Harry Potter book, she wrote a character, Remus Lupin, that is clearly an analog for a gay man with AIDS. He has werewolfism, which makes parents really afraid of him, but as long as he takes his magical medication, he's okay and he's not a predator. Then he is consistently paired up in the narrative with the other character that is around the same age that is a schoolboy friend, Sirius Black. Sirius Black and Remus Lupin have a very intense friendship, and as a teenager, I was convinced that they were a couple and that she would eventually reveal it. And then in the book where it seemed most natural for her to do so, she has Remus Lupin hook up with Sirius Black's gay-coded shape-shifting cousin instead. And I remember just being furious because I'd read and reread the books for signs, and I was convinced it was there, and there was no gay representation in the series, which at the time was a huge deal, right? It was clearly a story that was an analog for prejudice and marginalized characters finding their chosen families, but there was no queer character, no gay character at all. And she was really kind of mean about it, which is a sign of things in the future.
I want to brag a little bit about my predictions for Harry Potter back in the day.
Yeah. Did you predict that it would suck? Because it does.
Here's the thing. We had a club back in high school before the 7th book came out, where we were all like taking bets about what would happen in the 7th book. And I put my money on this long shot bet, knowing that J.K. Rowling was this like deep in the paint Christian who like could not get away from Christian ideology and iconography, that the last book would have Harry die and then come back to life.
Yeah,
and
that was a pretty safe bet.
I made bank on that.
Yeah, you fucking did. I remember when what they called it was the carpet book, when someone from Barnes & Noble just took pictures of every page from the epilogue and put it up. I remember the carpet book and just being like, this seems fake because it sucks. And then getting the book and reading it and being like, okay, well, shit. Sorry.
Oh boy. The other one about fan community, I think there's more spaces to discuss comics online than ever before. I think the reason letter column pages disappeared is because the internet has taken the place of that. You can go literally anywhere to talk about comics.
That's 100% true. We have fractured so much so that a lot of these little communities are like tiny little communities, and sometimes it takes work to find the community for you.
Very true.
And like that's been a long journey for Lisa and myself over the last 5 years or so. That's what we've been kind of trying to do with Comic Book Couples Counseling, is like building our own as well. But there's a lot out there, and it's not like the early days of the internet where you would find one message board and you could just live there for weeks on end. It's also good to detach from them too.
Yeah. All right. Well, Brad, thank you so much for joining us. Obviously, I think people should check out the Comic Book Couples Counseling podcast. Listen to the Grant Morrison episode in case we never get them. But we will. We're still doing it. We're still going to make it happen.
Sending signals out through the astral plane as we speak.
Persistence is the key to any kind of creation, you know? So you just keep on doing it.
All right. Brad, you have any last words? Anything you want our audience to check out?
Yeah, just head on over to comicbookcouplescounseling.com. We're on all the platforms. Listen to any episode you want. Today, we just dropped a new episode with Robert Kirkman and Ryan Otley talking about Battle Beast, the new series.
Ooh.
And we do confront them about Battle Beast being an end-of-life story. And do they like that? Do they like that? Our interpretation of Battle Beast? No.
Yeah. That's happened to me before, but that's a story for another time. All right. Well, thanks for being here. What a great episode. What a way to kick off the final quarter of 52. And I'm left with one last question that I'm obligated to ask. I mean, I'd be kicking myself in the teeth all week if I didn't. So I got to take this opportunity because I can't live with the regret that I'd feel for having this chance.
And you know what? We want you to speak your truth,
Yeah.
Jaffe. We want to live your truth and speak your truth and be in the moment. Just be empowered for your own self and your own being.
I apologize if this question is a burden to you, but it's more for me that I have to ask it. And I want to thank you in advance for being here to receive that question.
Oh my God. Thank you so much. It's such a blessing to be here in this moment for you, holding space for you.
I see you as I hope you see me. When I ask, are you ready?
I mean, I guess. "52 Pickup" is an Aftermath production created by Gita Jackson and Alex Jaffe and edited by Esper Quim with original music by John Aaron. Hosting for 52 Pickup is provided by Insert Credit. The views and opinions expressed on this show are solely those of the show's personalities and do not reflect those of DC Entertainment or Warner Brothers. Please rate and review our show wherever you can and send your questions and comments to 52mailbag@gmail.com. Never stop reading comics.